Hey credit warriors, Credit Shuffle here, and today we are talking about 5 money mistakes that you should avoid. Now, they will not teach you this in school, kids, so let's get started. Now, number 1 is keeping cash uninvested. So if you have a bit of cash lying around, and I'm not talking about $100 or $200, okay, it's probably not worth it with those sorts of amounts, but over $1,000, okay, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and upwards, if you have that, it's really stupid to keep it in a checking account or even in a savings account that's earning low interest. Like, for example, my Chase savings account, I think it earns 0.01 in interest, okay, which is ridiculous. So right now, US inflation is running at about 1.6% per year. So that means the buying power of your money is decreasing by 1.6% per year. So for every $100 that you have, the buying power is decreasing by $1.60 per year. If you have it in a savings account that's earning 0.01, okay, you're taking 10 cents off that, so it's only decreasing by $1.50 per year, all right? But it's still decreasing. So, and obviously, you know, for every 100, you're losing 160, for every 1,000, you're losing $16, for every 10,000, you're losing $160 in buying power, okay? If you just weren't earning interest on it at all. So, you know, what's the solution? Well, you could invest that money in stocks, those kind of things, okay, but that's more of a longer term investment. The best option, if you want to keep the money reasonably liquid, is just to get it into a savings account. Now, there are still a lot of savings accounts, you know, even though interest rates have gone down a little bit, there are still lots of savings accounts that are paying over 2% interest, okay? I think I'm still getting 2.1% with American Express Personal Savings. You've got all the usual ones, you know, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally Bank, etc. Most of them are still over 2%. And there are also other things you can consider, like CDs. I'm considering a CD from Chase for my business, a 9-month CD that pays exactly 2%. I want to keep my money with Chase because I want it to count towards the balance for Sapphire banking and Chase private client in the future, so I'd prefer not to move it out of there. But I definitely want to be getting some interest on that money. So that's number 1, okay? The first financial mistake or money mistake that people make is not earning interest and having the buying power of their money eaten away by inflation. Number 2, low credit score. Now, a low credit score can influence the interest rates that you pay on various loan products, okay? We'll talk about that in a second. It can cost you a lot of money, but first of all, it's really a no-brainer to improve your credit score, all right? There's no real excuse for having a low credit score. It's really easy. Just get a no annual fee credit card, and then once you've got one, wait 6 months, get another one. You know, have a few accounts going, always pay them off on time. You don't even need to have to use them that often. You can buy a coffee on your credit card each month, pay it off on time, and it'll help your credit score. It'll show up as an on-time payment, all right? Now, why is this important? So like we said, credit score influences your interest rates. So even if you're someone who avoids debt, at least to buy a house in the future, you'll probably have a mortgage. Now, a difference of just, for example, 0.5% in your interest rate on a mortgage can have a really big financial impact on you over time, okay? And a low credit score could drop your rate by 0.5%, all right? So let's have a look. I used a mortgage calculator to work this out. So on a $250,000 loan, that's approximately the average house price in the United States. A difference in a 0.5%, okay, 0.5%, a difference of just 0.5% on the interest rate could save you $73 per month. So a 4% interest rate would save you $73 per month versus a 4.5 interest rate, okay? Now, when we add that up over a year, so times it by 12, it's $876 that you would save. And then we times it by 30 to get the interest you'd pay over the life of the loan. That would save you $26,280 over 30 years. Now, that's a huge amount of money, $26,000 just from that 0.5% interest rate. So if you've just taken the time to improve your credit score to get it up to a good rate for mortgages, normally it's recommended to be over 740 to get the best rates, you could avoid that kind of huge expense over 30 years. And think what you could buy with that. That's $26,000 extra dollars invested, earning you dividends, getting you growth, etc. Or you could probably buy a car with that, brand new car. Number 3, buying luxury items you can't afford. Now, this is a problem that many people have. They start coming into money, let's say they're earning like, you know, $100,000 a year all of a sudden, and they're like, hey, you know, I want a Mercedes or I want a Lamborghini. And they're not really, you know, they're starting to feel rich, but they're not really there yet. And they just kind of jump the gun and they want to get all these luxury things before they can really afford it, okay? It's much better to solidify your financial foundation. If you're earning 100 grand a year, try and get 20 grand invested in the market for a few years before you start splashing out on luxury automobiles and houses and things like that, okay? So there are certain kind of guides for how much things should cost. For example, your house generally shouldn't be more than 2.5 times your annual income, or your house payment shouldn't be more than about 28% of your monthly salary, okay? The money you're paying in mortgage or rent payments. Hopefully it's mortgage, because then you're accumulating equity in the house. Renting really is just throwing money away, although a lot of people debate that. So don't buy a house that you can't afford, basically. And the same goes for cars. With houses, it's a little bit harder to buy a house that you can't afford if you're borrowing money, because generally mortgage brokerages, they'll only go to a certain point, but you can go lower. You could be like, well, 28% or 31% or whatever. I'm kind of pushing it to the max of what I can afford. Hey, why don't I buy a house that's only 20% of my monthly pay, and then I can save that other 10% or that other 8% and earn interest on it and build up my wealth by being a little bit more frugal. Same with cars. I was reading on Smart Asset, they were saying there's a rule of a kind of a 15% rule that your car payment shouldn't be more than 15% of your income, okay? Now that even to me sounds high, but let's just work with that figure. So if you were to lease this Lamborghini Aventador at $6,287 per month, you would need to earn $41,913 per month, which is $502,960 per year. So you shouldn't even be thinking about getting a top-of-the-range Lamborghini until you're earning at least $500,000 per year, okay? That's kind of the bracket you need to be in before buying a top-of-the-range luxury sports car. Let's go for a Lamborghini that's a bit cheaper. So even this Lamborghini Huracan, its lease payment, all right, and we're going with leasing because it's a little bit easier to work it out here, $2,276 per month. So you would need $15,173 in monthly income, which would be a salary of $182,000 per year. So even for a more entry-level Lamborghini, you need to be earning close to $200,000 per year. And even that, I would say you're still on the verge of being beyond your means, okay? It would be far more wise to get, say, a $800 per month Mercedes and save that extra $1,000 and something and invest it and build your wealth for a few years, and then you'll be able to reap in the returns later on. Because after all, these luxury sports cars, etc., they are what we call liabilities, and that brings me to our next section, which is number 4, buying liabilities instead of assets. Now this is something you can trace back to the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, where he really emphasizes you need to buy assets rather than liabilities. Obviously, he's not the person who invented this mindset. He got it from the people he learned from, but probably he's the most famous instance of this being written down in a book, okay? The rich buy assets, the middle class buy liabilities, and the poor, they just have expenses. Now, Dan Lok, he goes on to talk about this further, all right? The Chinese-Canadian, kind of money guru guy. He's got a lot of videos on YouTube, very interesting. But I remember one video of him when he's sitting in his Bentley and he's talking about how the rich view money differently. And he says, if I want a new car, like if I want a new Bentley, I'll first think of the asset that I can buy that's going to generate income, that's going to pay off the monthly payment on my new car. Okay, so I'll just think up a little example to illustrate this. Let's say you want a Bentley that's $4,000 per month lease payment. You go and spend, $800,000 or $1 million on, say, a duplex with 2 apartment units that will each bring in $2,000 per month in cash flow, okay? Those $2,000 per month in 2 units, so that's a total of $4,000 per month. So once you've rented it out, you can use that $4,000 passive income to go and pay for your Bentley. This is just an example, okay? So forgive me if these figures are slightly off, but this is the mindset that rich people have. I know that if you're earning maybe $50,000 a year, you won't really be able to have that mindset yet, but you can at least have it as a, kind of a goal, all right? So if you say, I would like to not have to pay my electricity bill, all right? That's a much more achievable thing. Let's say your electricity bill is $150 per month. You invest in something that gives you 5% back in either a dividend or a bond that gives 5% or something like that. You only need $36,000 invested at 5% to be able to generate $150 of passive income per month. Now, to most people earning around 50 grand per year, that would be an achievable goal, okay, in investing. A small goal, but achievable. You could say, I'm going to start investing, and within, say, 5 years, I want to be not having to pay my electricity bill anymore. And that can be as a springboard. And the next thing you could be like, well, in another 5 years, I want my my car payment to be cancelled out by passive income. And you can just keep going like that. And if you're just starting out, you can have a long-term goal in mind. Like for me, I want to send my kids to a private school in the future that costs about $20,000 per year per kid, right? So my goal is to invest over the next 7 or 8 years and in the end build up enough passive income that I can pay the $40,000 per year required to send them to a private school without having to actually pay any money out of pocket, okay? This is how people with money think differently. The last one, number 5, not tax optimizing your income, okay? So if you are on a reasonably low income, like under $40,000 per year, normally when you do your tax return, even though you've only paid maybe $1,000 in federal taxes or something, you end up getting a check for like $5,000, okay, or something like that, all right? Especially if you have kids, it's even more money that they give you. I remember I once paid like $1,000 a few years ago, and I got a check for $5,000 and I used it for business class flights, okay? I know that's not really what it's supposed to be used for, but hey, you're giving me free money. I mean, I'm not going to refuse it. So I think it's kind of stupid. But anyway, once you start earning over, say, 40,000, you come to 50, 60, 70, you really start to find that you're actually paying quite a lot of tax. I mean, I think I paid like $13,000 in federal taxes last year. This year it's going to be even more. So as you start to earn more money, you really need to start looking at ways to optimize your tax situation, okay? And the best way is to sit down with a CPA and talk through what tax deductions you can take, and they will vary depending on your situation. I'll just give a few examples. So one of the most obvious examples would be a traditional IRA, which you can put $6,000 a year into it, and that money is tax deductible that year, okay? Roth IRA is the other way around. You pay tax now, you don't pay it later. Traditional is that year. So, if you're investing in stocks for the long term, you might as well do it in a traditional IRA because you get a tax break for it, okay? And there are circumstances under which you can take that money out, like buying a house, medical expenses, etc. So it's not even set that you have to keep it for retirement. There are a lot of ways you can get money out of it. But you might as well, okay? So if you're in the 22% tax bracket and you put $6,000 in per year, you will save $1,320 in federal taxes that year. I mean, that's enough for a small vacation or even just an extra $1,000 that you can reinvest and get more interest payments and stuff out of. So it really is a no-brainer to take such a deduction. And there are many, many deductions. Some there are less if you are W-2. There are a few more if you are, self-employed, but there are still some that you can take if you're W-2, like childcare expenses. If you've had your kids in childcare, you can take a deduction for that on part of that income as long as both partners are working. I'm not going to go through in super detail, but there's things like home office deduction, medical expenses if they've been more than 10% of your income. And then if you're self-employed, there's even more options like just switching company structures. For example, if you're an LLC partnership, earning a reasonable amount of money, let's say, 60, 70 grand a year, and you switch to LLC S Corp, okay? It could save you $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000 in taxes, all right? It really is, it can be a big saving. I'm not gonna go through the exact details of S Corp here because we have another video on it on our Business Shuffle channel. But basically the point of this is once you start earning a bit more money, considering your tax deductions and employing a tax professional, which in itself is a tax deduction, the tax prep fees, CPA or an EA, they can really find a lot of deductions that can save you thousands of dollars. So don't leave money on the table. Tax optimize your finances. And guys, those are 5 money mistakes that you should avoid. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below and I'll try to think up 5 more and we'll probably do a sequel to this video sometime soon. Please subscribe if you're new. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.